first I'll introduce myself. My name is Alex. I've been at UMA and Across for 3+ years. On the Across side, really been focused on working with integrations with their cross-chain strategies. And that's really what I want to focus on talking with you all today, is just how Across makes it really easy to essentially offload the burden of having to do multiple chain deployments or do a lot of work to make your chain your Dapps cross chain. Across can essentially handle it for you, and we have several different options that I'll go through later in this presentation. So yeah, agenda, I'll just talk through, get everyone kind of on the same page of what is Across, what are some of the trade-offs with using it, and then I'll go through our demo. We recently just created an SDK, and we've had 30+ integrations before that SDK. So we incorporated all of the feedback we received from these teams, and basically, incorporated it into this SDK that I'll show you. We will do some transactions and kind of show you how to work with it. And then, I put questions at the end. But again, like if anyone has any questions as I go, don't hesitate to ask, and we can talk through whatever you guys want to go through. So, so the first slide, this is not new. Like, a lot of teams are focusing on this, like providing cheap, fast, secure interop. But I think it is important to note that Across is a bridge. Like, a lot of our volume comes from our UI, but we also are really focused now on offering this service to teams so that they can embed Across in their Dapps, so that they can not necessarily have to do like all the maintenance and everything of bridging, but like they're able to benefit from allowing users to essentially either bridge and access funds on chains that they're on their Dapps on, or they can also include these embedded transactions that make it really seamless to the point where users don't even know you're using a blockchain. So I think it's like a thing, it's been years where we've tried to like get to the point where users don't know they're using blockchains. The UX is as good as maybe a Web2 Dapps. But I think the big problem, and something that Across is really focused on, is how do we make bridge transactions interop extremely fast, cheap, and secure. And up to this point, I don't think it's been as much the Dapps builder's fault as some of these bridge protocols that take 20-30 minutes or cost $10 to send $100 across chains. Like, there's only so much Dapps builders can do to like kind of remove some of these hurdles. And this is kind of where a lot of the bridge, like what bridges look like. I mean, you have blockchain A and blockchain B, and they essentially rely on sending messages between these chains, and that's how value is essentially transferred from blockchain A to blockchain B. But again, the problem with that is sending these messages between chains. It's really slow, it's expensive, and insecure. We've seen countless bridge hacks and millions of dollars. Also, I mean, I'd say we're anticipating onboarding 10x, 100x the amount of users. So, if we're doing, millions of users using blockchains every day, it's not scalable to then be sending millions or even potentially like billions of messages to be able to satisfy like these cross-chain needs. So what Across has really focused on the last few years is this alternative called cross-chain intents. And how intents work, so instead of sending a message between blockchain A and blockchain B, you have these solvers. We call them relayers, but they're sophisticated actors. A lot of these are bots. but they'll watch blockchain A, and when like a deposit event is emitted, let's say a user wants to transfer their USDC on blockchain A to blockchain B, these solvers will essentially front the money on blockchain B for the user, and then they'll wait to be repaid. So this really removes that requirement of sending a message between blockchain A and blockchain B, and this transfer can be facilitated a lot quicker and cheaper. So this is kind of like a high level of the across stack. We've talked about this intent layer a little bit, but it's basically just the user articulating what they want completed. I think intents, it can kind of become confusing really fast, especially if you're on Twitter. But like for most of the across intents, it's basically just saying I want USDC on. I have USDC on Optimism. I want it on Arbitrum, and that's it. But they can also get more complex. So with what I'll show you later, we can also do like a bridge plus a deposit, a mint. You can also do a swap. So there's really no like limit what these intents can be. But like that top layer is just that user articulating what they want completed. And then the solver layer is what we talked about in the previous slide, where they're just watching for these intents, and then they're executing these intents on behalf of the user. So I think what's really important, like the takeaway from this slide, is that as a user, all you care about is like you want either your USDC or WETH from blockchain A to blockchain B as fast as possible. And so when the solver executes this intent on behalf of the user, I mean, that only takes 2, 3, 4 seconds. And so the user's happy. They already have their funds. And then the solver now waits to be repaid. And the settlement layer it uses UMA's optimistic oracle. And at a high level, every 60 minutes, a range of blocks are essentially proposed. And if any of these transactions are wrong, someone can dispute, but over 99.5% go through the whole challenge period without being disputed. And after these transactions are verified, they're repaid to the solver, and the solver receives a small fee. So at the end of the day, the user gets their transactions or their funds relayed or bridged extremely fast in under 5 seconds, and the solver gets repaid plus a small fee, and then they're able to reuse those funds again after they're repaid, after those intents are being verified. And one more thing on this, I think it's important to note, like it's very easy to like verify these. All you're essentially doing is matching the deposit on chain A and with the fill on chain B, and it's really easy to just kind of like match those, make sure that everything was executed accurately. So it's not like really complex verification that we're dealing with. And so this is just kind of a quote, like, now that you understand kind of how Across works at a high level, this is just a quote from an aggregator of transferring 100 USDC from Arbitrum to Base. And as you can see, it's under 2 cents to make this transfer. And although it says 1 minute, this is actually completed in under 5 seconds. So like, if we can bridge funds from one chain to another for under 2 cents and under 5 seconds, like I would argue that in terms of like the cheap, fast, and secure interop, I think we're there. And now it can be more on the dApp builders and a lot of the these projects we're focusing on chain abstraction and UX to kind of step in and make this user experience a lot better. This slide this chart might be a little dated, but like I I found this and I thought it was really interesting that like Dapps, building these consumer crypto projects, how much they're struggling like with onboarding, transaction UX, just funding accounts is hard, especially now that we're seeing so many applications create their own chains. Like, just being able to keep up with adding all these new chains and supporting just being able to fund your account when you have ETH on a new chain. Like, I think it's just really important that we keep up with kind of what the users are requiring. So these are like the 3 integration options that Across offers. The first one is a bridge UI, and I'll show you kind of an example of a team that's integrated with all 3. And this is basically it's almost taking the Across front end and recreating it in your Dapp so that users don't have to go to a separate Dapp to essentially bridge. I think that this retains a lot of users. I mean, if you just have to go to a tab and you can bridge funds and then go back to what you're doing, I think that's a lot better than like having to not only leave the Dapp, but like say you don't know which bridges are with Redstone or Blast, like what bridges are supported, and you have to like Google or find an aggregator or something. So I think a lot of value can happen with just embedding a bridge UI into your Dapp. The second option, I think this is the one that's the most exciting for me, and I think if you're building today, like I think this is just great for like especially users that are not as just not crypto power users. So this is a Dapp called Yield Nest. Their contracts are deployed on Ethereum mainnet. But what they allow you to do is they recognize the user balances on all these chains that Across supports. And so you're basically able just to select any of these other chains. And what's happening under the hood is that your base ETH is being bridged and then deposited into this mainnet contract. But from a user perspective, this UX looks pretty much identical to if you were to do a deposit with funds on the same network that the contract is deployed on, which is mainnet. So I think that this is a really good example of kind of where a lot of dApps are moving, and being able to just like offer all these different networks and recognize user balances, I think is a huge benefit. And we'll get into it in a second, but I think it's worth noting that like this requires no smart contract work on the Dapp side. This is a very simple front-end integration, which I'll kind of show you how we can use the SDK to build something like this. And then the last one is just a link out. And I just mentioned this because I think kind of like, creating a bridge UI might be a big lift for a lot of teams, but I think probably the easiest lift is just including like a bridge tab. And this is Miso Finance, and they added us as just part of the bridge tab. You click it, and you also have we have URL parameters that you could pre-select the destination chain or the origin chain, or even we give you a lot of flexibility in how you want this to be pre-selected for the user. But I think that that's like a nice easy lift for a lot of teams, and especially if you're just like thinking before maybe I go with the full bridge UI or cross-chain actions, which I just showed. Maybe I want to test out and see like how much volume this bridge, just adding a link out will create. And also we have these URL parameters, so we can help monitor and track yeah, your activity, but also like if you want to know how many transactions or how much volume you're creating through your bridge out, like we can tell you that as well. So I think like those are really the three integration options that we've seen and worked a lot with teams on. So that was kind of just like a high level of, yeah, what is a cross? Now I want to just show, without getting too technical, I want to show kind of how to work with our SDK, and kind of walk through an example demo. So before getting too much into the SDK, this is like a example. This is part of our example repo. We have these packages that show these examples, and this is all public. So this, in my mind, is like the perfect starting point for a team that wants to come in and kind of see like the code or how much work a bridge tab would take, or using a bridge plus action. So you can actually look at all this code and kind of see what that looks like. I'll also, in a second, show you how like you could change some of this code, and for your use case or for your network, it's really easy to basically change this from. We have like this simple staking contract on Optimism, and I'll show you how if you wanted to do like deposit into a scroll Aave contract, what would be required to change. And yeah, it's really easy, and you can make those modifications for your use case. So yeah, this bridge tab, this is pretty straightforward. Just you want to transfer WETH on Optimism, WETH on Arbitrum. So we'll jump over and focus on this bridge plus action. So this would be right now so we have this Optimism staking contract, and there's really two functions. Like there's staking and there's unstaking. So basically with this bridge plus action, what we're going to do is we're going to use our 0.002 ETH on Arbitrum to stake in this Optimism staking contract. So this will only require one click from the user. We're going to switch to Optimism, sorry. And then when we execute this, we'll see the deposit transaction, and shortly after, we see the fill transaction. So that's about how long it took to bridge and stake your funds in Optimism. So, and we already updated our staking balance. So I think like it's really cool to see just how quickly we can actually, do these actions from different chains. And to the user, it really seems like a lot of that complexity is abstracted away, and you don't have to worry about doing multiple transactions like you do sometimes with these cross-chain aggregators. So let's quickly just go in and we'll look at this deposit on Arbitrum. So this is the source chain that we're looking at. And so we input a very, this it's like 0.002 ETH, and then this is the output that we received on Optimism. And the difference in these amounts are just the small amount of fees that were charged for the relayer and the LPs to essentially execute this transaction. But what I really wanted to show you is this is the message, and this is what we encoded in this on blockchain or blockchain A, or like the origin chain. And this is where we said this is what we want done on Optimism. So we encoded these transaction calls, which I'll show you. So this is like the code behind these transactions that we included, that we wanted executed on the destination chain or Optimism. So like basically, I'll just kind of quickly walk through this. You're able to add a fallback recipient, that, so if like the calls on the destination chain reverted or failed, this is where you can specify the address that you want to receive the funds. So like in that transaction we just did, instead of transferring, or because the transaction failed, they would just transfer ETH to this user address on Optimism instead of having these funds like locked up in the contract and having the user have to like go do something. But like failed transactions should be extremely rare unless you're dealing with swaps and there's like slippage requirements that the users are setting. And then this is kind of like the meat of like really creating these cross-chain transactions. So all it really requires you to do, there's just an array of transaction objects. And this first one is just a simple approval. So you're just approving the staking contract with this input amount. And then the second transaction is basically, like you're actually creating the call data for that stake transaction. And this is the helper function that basically encodes the call data for that staking transaction. So I basically now just want to show quickly, I created this script. And so instead of doing basically this staking contract, this stake on Optimism, I want to show what you would need to do if instead you wanted to deposit it into an Aave contract on Scroll. So I guess here we'll quickly go through, like this is where I set up my cross client, my VM client. This is pretty standard. Probably not worth really going into outside of, I think that this chains array is really cool because you can kind of control the cross contract or the cross supported networks that you want to use with your Dapp. You don't have to support all the chains we do if you don't want to. If you think it like, the drop down of 15, 20 chains is too much or intimidating for the users and you just want to focus on those main ones, you can do some like interesting stuff with the config. But here's really what I want to focus on is like retrieving the quote. So this shows like this input amount. I'm just using one USDC. So this example uses ETH. My example uses USDC, so it'll be slightly different. But for this route, all I'm doing is setting the origin chain. So I want to go from Arbitrum, where I have funds, to the destination chain Scroll, which that's where the Aave contract is I want to deposit into is. And then I want to input our USDC, and I want to use output Scroll USDC. And this is important because this output token is what is going to be used for whatever destination transactions you're actually adding. And then this is the get quote function in the SDK. So this one, it doesn't include this cross-chain message, which I'm including in my example, but you can see like, here's the route and the input amount. Here's the route and the input amount. And then I'm including this cross-chain message. I'm setting my address as the fallback recipient. So if anything bad happens and the transactions revert, I'm just going to receive that USDC on Scroll. And then here's kind of where things get a little different. Since I'm depositing into an Aave contract on Scroll, and this example uses like the staking contract on Optimism. So all I would need to really change is instead of approving, instead of approving the Optimism USDC address, I'm doing an approval with the Scroll USDC for the Aave contract. And then this is where I'm including the specific logic for the Aave contract. So I'm setting this this Aave contract on scroll as the target, and then I'm generating this deposit call data. This is very simple to do. You're just encoding this you need the supply ABI, or you need whatever contract you're working with. You need to parse the ABI, and then these arguments are specific to the Aave supply function that I'm calling on scroll. But that's really all that needs to be changed to essentially do a deposit on this Aave contract on scroll. And so if you were doing something different, like on a different chain, you could just change this destination chain ID and then this output token. And if you want to do like a mint, you'd obviously approve the mint contract, the contract that you're calling the mint on, and then you would just change this transaction object to be specific to the call data and the address that you want to mint. So, and then after that, it's just calling execute quote. You're passing in the wallet client. And then this basically allows you to easily track the status of the deposit and the fill. So we'll just run this to see. I logged a lot of this quote information just so you can kind of see like this message that's being added to the deposit. But you also so when you're getting a quote, it'll include like the limits, like the maximum limit and the maximum deposit and the minimum deposit. I think the maximum deposit instant is an important value. Like our API tracks like the amount that can pretty much be instant. So like that 10 seconds or less. So it's important to it's still really high max deposit limits. But then this minimum deposit, I think it's 0.5 ETH. 0.5 USDC. That's so the lowest that you can use across to make a transfer for is like 50 cents. So we do a fee breakdown. And then we can, so here this is just logging like this fill event that was emitted. But here we can just go to scroll scan and kind of just look at this transaction. So you can see that, so you can see this Aave scroll amount. Might be easier just to look at the logs. So this is the across. This filled V3 relay is emitted when a fill is made using a cross, and you can see that we also, it was included in this transaction. We minted 0.92. That's how much we supplied into the Aave contract, and we minted this Aave token that represents the amount that we supplied. So this just kind of shows like how easy it is and flexible. Based on what your use case is, you can easily grab this example and look at the code. Here's I can, if anyone's interested, I can point kind of like some of the good starting points, and we're updating our docs for this. But I think the real, just what I want to show is just how easy it is for anyone to come and copy and paste a lot of this logic and make their dApps cross-chain extremely fast. And you can basically just make some edits to the examples we have. And you can start allowing your dApps to be cross-chain today. And we have a lot of integration support, which we're happy to help you with. Well, you can absolutely DM me on Twitter. My username is agains_. Also, you can go to the Across website, which is across.to, and we have a contact form on there that basically goes straight to our whole team, and yeah, someone will get in contact with you. Or you can also just DM the Across Twitter. We're very active there, so whatever makes the most sense for you. If anyone sees this, strongly encourage to reach out to me or someone on the team. We love working with teams, even if you feel like you're early in the process, or you're not ready to like make that integration step today. Like, we'd still love to talk to you and kind of help out at wherever we can. We're very hands-on, so we can help wherever makes the most sense.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for the workshop today. If you are going to be watching a recording, make sure to reach out to Alex if you have any questions, and then also keep a lookout for some educational content that we're going to work on getting on LearnWeb3 for Across. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.